This is where the movers and shakers of Kansas come to share their life stories and the lessons they've learned along the way. This week, my guest is a Wichita businessman who knew how to gain traction in his industry while paving the way toward a life focused on family and faith. Fred Berry Jr. grew up near the St. Louis area, graduated from the University of Illinois, and then earned his MBA from Harvard Business School. After a stint in the Air Force, Berry went to work at his father's farm equipment business. Then in 1957, he purchased a road machinery business in Wichita and made it the home base for what would become the Berry Companies Incorporated. The six-state conglomerate operates 37 locations, selling heavy earth-moving machinery and manufacturing asphalt paving equipment. The company is family-owned and operated, led by Berry's son, Walter Berry, and the third generation is also moving into management roles. Now in his 90s, Mr. Berry is still involved with the company, serving as Chairman Emeritus. But business isn't his only interest. He also has a passion for aviation, community service, and his Christian life. We'll talk about all that and more as I go one-on-one with Fred Berry Jr. Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom. I'm delighted to welcome Fred Berry Jr. to the program. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Victor. I'm looking forward to it, I believe.
You will enjoy it, I hope. You grew up on the farm in Illinois. So as you look back on your childhood today, what things set you on track for success?
Well, gosh, the family situation was just idyllic. I was so fortunate, so blessed. I'll use that word again later. And then we had ponies, my brother and I, and we did help with the farming because it was during the war years that our hired help was impossible to get. Dad was in business at the same time, but he could spend some more time on the farm. So we had farm work to do, responsibilities. We didn't realize it then, but we were learning some basic aspects of a constructive, productive life, I think. And then we were free to do a lot. The mother in those days didn't worry about where we were as long as we came home for dinner,
So you were responsible children growing up.
I guess so, yes.
Yeah.
So, I could tell a couple stories that would question that, but you don't have you don't have time for all my stories. Yeah.
So after you attended college in Illinois,
yes,
and upon graduation, you enrolled in Harvard Business School.
Yes.
That is impressive.
Well, it changed my life, Victor. And first I must say how it happened. I honestly had not heard of the Harvard Business School when I was at the University of Illinois. Mm-hmm. I'd heard of Harvard, of course. But we had an alumnus of the fraternity who had a son in the Kappa Sigma chapter where I was, same class as I was. And he was a trustee of the university, in fact became chairman of the trustees in my senior year. And he would be at the house to see his son and join us for dinner and so on fairly often. And took a shine to me. I was active on the campus and this thing and that thing. And he had hired a young man. In those days it was all men. In fact, my class at Harvard Business School was all men, class of 52. But this man had impressed him, so he had hired him to manage his small manufacturing business so that he could spend more time in Illinois. Right. He loved it. And so he kept talking to me about it, and I talked to my folks about it. They said, well, it does sound interesting. If you want to try to get in, we'll support you. And they did. I did apply. It was a fairly extensive application process, but I got in. And it changed my life in two ways. Once it did gain some competence of business skills, people dealings, organizational dealings, maybe more than just accounting and so on. But the other thing was confidence, because I came away thinking I could probably build a business and do a little more than just work for somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Upon receiving that MBA, you then moved, well, not immediately, but you selected Wichita to be the place to live.
Well,
how did that come about?
Well, I'll be as quick as I can. First off, there was Korean War years. I got out in '52. The Korean War was '50 to end of '53, and so I had to go in the service. I had been deferred by the draft, but I got a direct commission, one of the many blessings, based on being an undergrad engineer and an MBA, and the Air Force in my case, and I was already a private pilot, so I loved being around airplanes. They were trying to get people in to help them improve the repair rate for the limited. We weren't prepared for the Korean War, because we thought wars were over in 1945. You know, so I had a 2-year period in the Air Force at a maintenance base in Sacramento. I've always said I didn't have to go to Korea, I did have to go to a foreign country, California. But then I came home to join my father's farm equipment business, which he was still in at the time,
and this was in Illinois?
The business actually was in St. Louis. The farm was in Illinois, on the Mississippi River north about 20 miles, near Alton, Illinois. Town of Wood River was the mailing address. Dad was selling farm equipment, and the manufacturer changed his distribution and bought out the distributors under their contract. He did it right and legally and all, although it was involuntary. He didn't want to sell out. And of course, his 2 young sons, I had a brother at the time, we joked that Dad had waited and waited for us to finish our education and finish our service. We both had to serve and come home. They took a closer look at us and sold the business. But he went back to the farm because he commuted from the farm he was born on, farm I grew up on, and that left Brother Paul and me high and dry, fairly newly married, each with our first baby, and unemployed. The opportunity we found after looking hard in the St. Louis area, we didn't want to move. Our in-laws were there and all, as well as our own parents. But this construction equipment business, Sam Denny Road Machinery Company, was for sale out here by the trust department of the First National Bank, now Intrust, because the gentleman had died and left no family, no heirs, and truthfully no plan. The bank was desperate. So it was an opportunity that looked like we could handle it, and my, how well that has worked out. We love Wichita. The business became a base of what has become a very nice business, and it worked out very well. Yeah.
You have businesses in several states, about 37 of them. What do you call them? Stores?
Well, branches.
Branches?
Yeah, I personally don't much like the branch word, but that's common in the industry, because we try to give our branch managers a lot of autonomy and authority, so that for their customers in their market, they're the dealer. They make a lot of decisions, maybe not all, but most, and that's very important to us. But we're selling construction equipment, and many of those locations are involved with the little Bobcat compact loader and excavator business, little white machines. They're a broad market for those, and we need a location in anywhere where there's 100 or more homes built a year or something of that order. Housing is the main driver of our activity.
Right.
So that's why we've expanded into a total of 6 states, including one location in Cheyenne, Wyoming. But otherwise, it's Kansas, of course, Oklahoma, Texas, western Missouri, and all of Colorado.
What brought success to the Berry companies?
I think the key, and I think our people would agree, is that a combination of delegation, as I said, of authority and responsibility, and it's not right to delegate responsibility without authority.
Right.
It gets done a lot, but it's not right. And trust. I want to add the word trust. We developed that. We do trust our people. Sure, we have some things we have to monitor for the bank and so on. We have to have inventory controls and whatnot, but we trust, and we've been very fortunate that our trust has not been taken advantage of very many times over the years. And it's been a great satisfaction to me. I've always enjoyed that aspect of growing the business, of seeing people develop into their own leadership roles and maybe go open a branch or start as a parts counter person, become the parts manager, become the branch manager. I love that.
How, Mr. Berry, how do you go about selecting which state or city you establish a Berry company?
Well, Victor, primarily it's just is the market there? Is there an opportunity? But also we do have a sense of culture, and we have made it clear to our suppliers. You know, we have a close relationship with the Bobcat Company, with the Komatsu Heavy Equipment Company, with the Yale and Heister Forklift Company, that we don't want, even if they might like us, to go somewhere else that's out of this Midwestern trusting culture. So that has been a factor. But otherwise, when we got an opportunity to get Bobcat for Houston, and then Bobcat for Dallas-Fort Worth, and we already had Komatsu for Western Kansas. We got it for Topeka and Springfield, Missouri. It's market-driven, opportunity-driven.
Right. Okay. Now, Walter Berry, your son,
yes,
is currently the president and CEO of the company right now.
Right.
The third generation of your family is also moving into management roles. Tell us about this family you have.
Well, we have been blessed, I'll use that word again, to have a family that interested and qualified, because there's nothing worse in a family business to have the next generation either not interested or not qualified and try to be and fail. There's nothing worse.
Right.
No. But we've been fortunate. Walter has 3 sons and a daughter. The son-in-law was in with him for a little while, but he has a very strong interest in furniture building, not manufacturer, it's craftsman. And he is a real craftsman. But his other 3 boys are all, as of this summer, the third one finished an MBA at Boston University in Boston and joined us in our Dallas operation in June. The older one, Jonathan, runs the Berry Tractor division, our original business on West Street,
right.
Runs it very well. And then the second boy, Adam, also got an MBA at SMU and had worked in Dallas, which is a good training ground because that's one of our best managed divisions. And he's back here in Wichita with his dad now. Yeah.
You have used the word blessed several times now in the last, 15 minutes of this interview, or the first 15 minutes, I should say. How much has God played in your life?
Oh, Victor, I think he's been in charge. I think there are times when if you don't stop and think about it, it's easy to think that you're doing something, but there has been a plan pretty clearly in my life. And I've jokingly said that if I ever write my memoirs, the title will be How Many Times Blessed. But then the first blessing was that family situation we talked about a little bit. My parents were active church people. My maternal grandfather was a Methodist pastor, hellfire and brimstone type with long flowing white hair. I just barely remember him. He died, I was 8 or 9 years old. But and then Sue's family were strong Christian family. Her father was born in Scotland, so they were card-carrying Presbyterians, of course. And but God has played a role. I've often said I didn't feel as close to him as I should have in the college years. I wasn't alienated like some young people, unfortunately, but I think I didn't know him well enough to really miss him in those days. But when I finished all that education and service and got married to Sue, and her Christian faith is more of the heart. Mine was more of the head. I could read it and I comprehend, but she helped me broaden, and it played a role in our children are all active in their churches. They're believers, and our grandchildren, and we've been fortunate in so many ways. Yep.
So you have said that you want to make a business, not a business, but you want to make a statement, a Christian statement in business. What is that statement?
Ethical business dealings, where you do the right thing, whether it costs you or not, rather than the profitable thing.
Right.
And you trust your employees, recognizing, as the Lord has told us, that we're all the same in His eyes. And we have that feeling about everyone in our company. There aren't any second-class people in our company. They have a different job, but they're all important people in the very sense that Christ said we're all the same.
We play what I call a little game on this program. It's a lightning round. It's another way for the public to get to know you and to understand where you're coming from. So I will start a sentence and you finish it up and state why. All right? The first one, my happiest moment in life was or is?
Well, I've had a lot of happy moments, fortunately, because I've been blessed, as we keep saying. But if I had to pick one, it would be my wedding to Suzanne Nicol Berry. As I said, father born in Scotland on Nichols Hill. And she just has enriched my life and therefore our family's life. She's one of the most interesting people, and our friends quickly say that. She reads extensively, loves to travel, plans travel, very creative, artistic. Her home is beautifully furnished, and no, that's clearly my happiest.
That should make her very happy to hear that from you. And to announce it on television.
That would make me a few points at home, shouldn't it?
It should, yes.
On Valentine's Day, as a matter of fact.
Exactly. The next one is, my most difficult moment in life was?
Well, you know, my attitude has been such that I kind of don't admit to the difficulties, but the 1980s, our business was beginning to grow and build and was fairly sound, but we depended on bank relations. We still do to a large degree, but it's so much easier now that the company is healthier. But for those of the right age, the 80s in this part of the country, when the oil fell from about $30 a barrel to 10 in a matter of months, left a lot of people in the oil industry in real trouble. And our industry suffered. A number of the old companies, including International Harvester, which was our first major line, the bulldozer business on West Street, they went out of business. Alice Chalmers went out of business, so on. And we struggled. We actually lost money, and I had to spend a lot of time at the bank explaining that we were somehow going to come through it all right. Had to lay some people off, and they didn't like to do that. So I'd have to say that. Now, we had another bad time that most everybody now would remember, and that was 2008, 09, and 10. Son Walter and son-in-law Dan was working with him at the time. They handled that. It was very difficult, but they were on the front line of that. Again, we had the only second time that we had to do any layoffs in our 60 years in business. Yeah.
I am most proud of?
Oh, my family. My family, yes. Those 4 children and their grandchildren. We have 17 grandchildren, and as of 2 weeks ago, now 19 great-grandchildren. And most of them either here, many of them are, 3 of those 4 and their children are here thanks to the business, and the older son a long time with Cessna, and now full-time volunteer on the B-29 dock. So they're here, Dallas, Denver, one in Brooklyn, but she gets home a lot. So I'm very proud of my family. Yeah.
Something I always wanted to do that I never accomplished was?
Well, maybe write that memoir. That's How Many Times Blessed. I loved riding ponies first, and then a horse on the farm up until college age. And I've thought over the years, and Sue and I've joked about it. I didn't have time for it, and she always said, "Fred, when would you have time to have a little farm area out here, not too far away, with horses?" It wasn't a big thing with me, and I certainly didn't do it. And because we just just were always too busy with the family and my community activities, church
Right.
activities, so on.
And if I could redo my life, one thing I would change is?
Well, it sounds well, supercilious or some big word that I wouldn't change anything. That's not true. But I really don't have any major changes. I wouldn't change my family, my growing up, certainly not my marriage. Our business has been very successful. My education, of course, turned out well.
Right.
There's just not much I would change.
The final one is, I most want to be remembered for?
Having made a Christian statement in the marketplace and in my family. Yeah.
So you are also a pilot.
Yes.
You have flown many, many hours, about 7,000
Yes.
hours in your
Yep.
lifetime.
Yep.
Do you still fly?
Well, no. Unfortunately, as I joke, I wanted to make age 80, and I was close. But then our insurance came up for renewal, and I joke as the insurance company finally got down to the line at the bottom of the page and showed the birth date. But they didn't cancel me, and they swore it's not directly related to age, but they changed the price that if I wanted to be the pilot in command with the business responsibilities and all, the business owned the airplane,
Right.
and therefore anything that would ever happen, they'd sue the business, of course, and they wouldn't sell enough liability with me piloting to protect the company. So I just had to quit. I needed a nudge. As I say, I was 79. I'd started at 17, flew 62 years. We own the 21st airplane now that the family and the company have owned from 1947. But I flew the 19 of them, I guess. Walter's had two. He's flying a Citation jet now with a single pilot jet rating, and I didn't get to that level.
So you quit flying?
I quit piloting.
Piloting, yes.
Yeah.
So you also enjoy snow skiing?
Yes. We got started an area in in Colorado called Crested Butte. Many have heard of it. And I skied for my last time last year in March, and I'm not quite 91 at the time, within a month. But son Walter organized with our 8 grandsons a Fred Berry grandson ski weekend. So it was Fred and 2 sons, Walter and Franklin, and the 8 grandsons, and plus actually Walter's son-in-law. And we all got out to our place. We had finally built a house in Crested Butte. My wife Sue has spent summers out there for 30 years, and the family all enjoys it. So yeah, we enjoyed skiing for a long time, and the rest of the family
And you still
does.
ski?
Well,
No?
No, I'm not going to ski this year. No, I'm going to say last year was the final. Was it?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why are you giving it up?
Well, I could get hurt, and I'm not. My legs aren't as strong. I joke and I say, it isn't falling down that worries me. It's getting up. And the possibility of a knee or an ankle and then being laid up at my age, probably not smart. Last spring when we went, she made the grandsons all promise, now if you let Fred get hurt, you guys have got to take turns being here with me to help me with him gone, or not able to help.
Right.
Yeah.
With all of your experiences you've had in life, the business, the piloting, the skiing, the fun times, what lessons have you learned along the way?
Well, I'm going to touch on an area that we haven't talked about much, and that's been community service, Victor. And as you know, that became a major part of my life, board memberships and leaderships. And I think, well, I can't have trouble with the right words, but developing among a board or leaders in Wesley Hospital, or one of the ones that was really important to me was the Institute of Logopedics, now HeartSpring, or the new, it was new then in the 80s, the Wichita Community Foundation, is bringing other people involved and pulling them together and encouraging them to participate. And little manipulation, I guess you might call it, where you talk to them individually about how important the effort is and how working together is so important. That kind of board leadership, which I think I was known for, gave me a lot of satisfaction. Yeah.
What is the best advice that you have to give to young people today in about 15 seconds?
Find what you really love to do, and something you really get satisfaction in, and find a way to make a living doing it. You may need a little creativity, you may need some mentors to help you, and then get really good at it. Become good at something,
right.
And make an effort. Study, practice, not just go to work, and where you get a great satisfaction out of doing something that is also a breadwinning occupation, support a family.
In other words, don't become a jack of all trades.
Yeah. No. Focus.
Focus,
sold
right.
on that.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You've achieved a lot in your life. You've lived a wonderful life. So what is your interest in life today?
Well, now that, you threw one at me there, Victor. We've got to think about it. Well, the family, of course, is our big interest. We still are able to travel and love traveling. I read a lot, and I enjoy reading, enjoy watching sports, although I'm not a big sports guy, but, Wichita State and so on, the Chiefs, obviously. And just being with Sue at home is enjoyable. Yeah.
Taking life easy.
Yes, although Sue might say, well, he's not taking it much easier than I did. I do love hanging around the office. My
right.
Official title is Chairman Emeritus, and I don't have any real duties. And Walter and his other executives, non-family, and by the way, a third of our business is owned by our employees.
Okay.
It's family controlled and owned, but
right.
Our employees we have a lot of employees that have ownership.
That is wonderful.
Yeah, that's worked out so
right.
well. But I love being my secondary title. They joke around the office is cheerleader.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fred Berry.
Well, Victor, thank you.
Junior.
I've enjoyed it. I have.
And we appreciate you being here.
Good. Good luck to KPTS. It's important.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope you enjoyed this edition of One-on-One. Send us an email if you have a question or comment. oneonone@kpts.org is our address. Until next time, I'm Victor Hogstrom. Thanks for watching.